Hi, welcome to Storytime. My name's Dee and I'm from Gold Coast Libraries. Guess who's back? It's Dougie. He just can't stay away. He so loves his Storytime, don't you, Dougie? Say hello. Good boy. Now, before we start, just a quick message for our grown-ups. Do you know that you're never too young to have your own library card? Your little one can have a library card from birth. And of course, as we all know, it's free. Okay. Now, children, before we start our story time, what do? With our little hands, we go clap, clap, clap. With our little feet, we go tap, tap, tap. Fold your hands in your lap. It's not time to nap. Do you know what time it is? Yes, Dougie, it's story time. And today, Dougie, we have a book about a pigeon, and his name is Gary. Let's have a look. Gary by Leila Rudge. Most of the time, Gary was just like the other racing pigeons. He ate the same seeds, he slept in the same loft, and dreamt of adventure. So this is Gary, and these are all the other pigeons. But on race days, when the pigeons set off in the travel basket, that's a travel basket there, Gary would stay at home. To pass the time, he organised a scrapbook. He had a collection of travel mementos from everywhere. So there's his little scrapbook. And they're little souvenirs. Goodness me, what's he got? He's got train tickets. He's got bus tickets. All sorts of souvenirs. Except Gary, you know, he'd never been to these places. He'd never been anywhere because, unlike the racing pigeons, Gary couldn't fly. The racing pigeons usually returned just before supper, and they always discussed wind directions, flight paths, or waypoints. Gary just loved hearing about their adventures. He would perch nearby and record everything in the scrapbook. There he is. He's listening very carefully to everything they say. Until one night, Gary leaned a little bit too far and he lost his balance. His scrapbook flew up into the air and Gary, he fell down to the bottom of the loft and then into the travel basket. Oh, look, here he goes. That's the basket that the racing pigeons go out in. The next day was race day, and Gary found himself a very long way from home. See the little car? What's Gary going to do? He can't fly, and he really wouldn't know his way around. By the time Gary woke up, the sky was full of feathers and flapping wings. The racing pigeons were racing. Except Gary didn't go anywhere because, as we know, Gary can't fly. Soon the other pigeons were just dots in the distance. They were flying back to the loft. Gary wondered if he would ever find his way home, or if he would be lost in the city forever. I wonder why Gary can't fly. Maybe his wings aren't long enough. Do you think? Yeah. Gary's collection of travel mementos always perked him up, so he opened up his scrapbook. Remember his scrapbook also fell down and fell into the basket? Do you remember that bit? So anyway, gradually, the city began to feel a little bit more familiar, and Gary felt a little less lost. That's because in his scrapbook, remember we said that he had all these souvenirs, like tickets and bus tickets and maps. Okay, right, see? Same. Maybe he will be able to work his way home. Before long, Gary had plotted his own way back to the loft. Oh, look, with the help of his scrapbook, he's worked out a path. On the bus here, onto another bus. You know, even though Gary can't fly, he's actually very, very smart. Gary arrived home just before supper. God, how clever! With all sorts of new travel mementos for his scrapbook. And the most adventurous adventure story. Gary couldn't fly, but Gary had been everywhere. Most of the time, Gary was just like the other racing pigeons. He ate the same seeds, and he slept in the same loft, and he dreamt of adventure. But on some days, the other pigeons were just like Gary. Do you know what I think's happened here? I think they've all started to follow Gary on his adventures. Oh, that was lovely. So even though Gary couldn't fly, he had other talents. He was very clever at finding his way around with maps. Just as good. Wasn't that nice? If you liked that story and you'd like more stories, you can go to our website and join our online library. I hope I'll see you next time. Bye. Bye-bye.